Hello class, today we're going to do lesson 4.3 to 4.5, which is on proving triangles congruent. So before we can get started today, you do need to understand some important vocabulary that we're going to use within the lesson. So the first vocab word is called included angle. And really this is an angle between two sides. So for example, if we take a look at this photo, in this triangle GHI, here I have two different sides, this side and this side. The included angle is the angle that's in between those sides. So it'd be like that angle G there, okay? Similarly, here's a side and here's a side. What's the angle in between? It's angle I, okay? So the included angle, just like the word in, right? It kind of means like the inside or in between angle. Included side is really the same thing, only a side. It's the side between two angles. So taking a look at our photo example, here I have two angles, and what is that side in between? The side length GI, that's the included side. Again, in the next one, here's an angle and here's an angle. What's the side in between those two? Well, it's that side HI. Okay, so it's in between the two angles. Some other vocab to know are different parts of a right triangle. The first word is hypotenuse. It's kind of a silly word, hypotenuse. And that's the side that's opposite the right angle. So taking a look at our example, here's the right angle, which means 90 degrees. The hypotenuse is the side right across from that. That's the opposite side. So I'm talking about this side length right here, okay? It's called hypotenuse. And then the next word, leg, those are the two sides that are next to the hypotenuse. So what I've identified in blue here. These two sides are both called the legs. All right, so that vocab is really important to know in order to understand what we're going to talk about next, which is really important pieces of today's lesson. All right, so in this table, these are all ways to, sorry, I'm trying to get this all the way on here. These are all ways to show triangles are congruent, okay? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways. And keep in mind, congruent, what that's talking about is showing that the two triangles are basically equal. They're the same. So the first way is called side, side, side. The S's represent the word side. And that states if 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to 3 sides of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So looking at our example, this side and this side both have the 2 tick marks. That means that they're the same. So that's one side that's the same. All right, here's a side and here's a side that has 1 tick mark. Okay, so that means that those 2 sides of the triangles are congruent. And notice how this third side is shared by both of those triangles. So that means that each triangle shares that same side. So they have side, side, side. So that proves that those 2 triangles, triangle JKA and triangle NKA, are congruent. The next one is side angle side. It says if 2 sides and the included angle of one triangle are congruent to 2 sides and the included angle of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So let's see if we can find the side angle side here. Okay, so notice we have our 2 triangles. We're trying to prove that they're the same. Well, this side here has the 2 tick marks, and this side has the 2 tick marks. That means that they are equal. They are the same. Okay? This side and this side only have 1 tick mark. That means that those 2 are the same. And then it doesn't say anything about this third side, so we can't say like side, 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 for example. Side, side, side doesn't work because we don't know that third side. We can't just guess. However, it does show me that this angle and this angle are the same. So if I look directly at this, I have a side and then an angle, and then a side, S-A-S. So that's why it works by S-A-S, side, angle, side. Okay, the next one is angle, side, angle, and that says if two angles in the included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles in the included side of another triangle, then those triangles are congruent. So let's see if we can find that here. We've got an angle, those two are the same. Now we've got this side is the same because they both have one tick mark. And now this angle is the same as this angle because they both have the two angle markings, okay? So we literally have right next to each other, we have an angle, a side, and then an angle. And because ASA is one that works, angle, side, angle, this is congruent. Now, I want to point out that while we're proving this, we don't know anything about these two sides, and we don't know anything about that angle. Right? If it's not marked, we can't guess. All right, the next one is called angle, angle, side. And that says if two angles in the not included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles in the not included side of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So what does that mean? Let's take a look. All right, here's an angle. It has two markings that's the same as this angle. Now I don't know anything about this side, so I can't say it yet. So right now we have an angle. We don't have that side, we don't know anything about it, but this angle here is the same as the next angle, y. So that means we have an angle next to an angle that we know are the same. And then right next to that angle is this side that is the same as this side, because they both have that one tick mark. So that's why we have angle, angle, side. Now again, we don't know anything right now about angle C and angle X, and we don't know anything about the side BC or the side ZX. It doesn't say anything, so we can't guess that. But we do know we have this angle, angle, side, okay? And that is one that works. Now, I do just want to point out, because we're new to this, that these are the only ways that you can prove triangles are congruent, okay? These are the only ways. So if you get a different combination of letters, then it wouldn't be congruent. So we'll get to some of those soon here. All right, the next one is if the hypotenuse and leg of one right triangle, keep in mind this is a right triangle, are congruent to the hypotenuse and leg of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So in order for HL to be a reason, they have to be a right triangle. Now this is a right triangle, this is a right triangle, so we're good on the right triangle. Now we have to prove that the hypotenuse, so remember the hypotenuse is that side directly across from the right angle. And this side has two markings, and this hypotenuse has two markings, so that means that we do have the H. They are congruent. And the L represents for one of the legs, so it doesn't matter which one. So let's take a look here. Side AB has one tick mark, and side XY has one tick mark, so that leg is the same. Now, nothing else was marked, but we do have enough to prove that those triangles are congruent, which then go ahead and means that the rest of the sides and the rest of the angles are also the same, okay? I know that it's not initially said, but once you prove they're congruent, then you can use everything that's congruent. Okay, now there are some combinations that we didn't mention, like let's say you get a side-side angle, okay? That one does not work. The only way that one would work is if you notice, this one is a side-side angle. Okay, so that one, like, you're like, wait a second, I thought side-side angle didn't work. But the only way side-side angle works is if it's a right triangle. And that's why we're going to use hypotenuse leg to identify it, okay? Now, if this was not a right triangle, if this was not 90 degrees, then these two would not be congruent. Okay, so let's take a look and let's see if we can do some examples. So example 1 says, state the third congruence that must be given to prove that triangle JRM is congruent to triangle DFB. So in this first one, it says we're trying to use side, side, side congruence. Okay, so let's see what we have. We have JR, so I'm going to mark the sides. JR is congruent to DF. We have JM is congruent to DB. So I just marked what it said. Now, if I want to use side, 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 that means that this side, RM, has to be congruent to the other side, FB. That would be the only way that side, side, side would work, because then we would have a side, we'd have a side, and we'd have a third side. Okay? I'm going to actually erase what I drew here, because the next one we're going to use the same picture but a different concept. Okay? So now we're going to use side, angle, side. So let's take a look. It tells us that JR is the same as DF. It tells us that JM is the same as DB. Now, we want to show that these are congruent by using side, angle, side. And these need to be right next to each other. So right now we have a side, and we have a side. In order to get this A for an angle, it has to be in between those two sides. So that means that this has to be an angle right here. That means that angle J and angle D have to be the same so that we get our SAS. Okay, I'm going to erase this again so that we can do the third one. All right, so now we're using hypotenuse leg. Okay, so remember that that has to be a right triangle. Let's see what we're given. RM is congruent to FB. Angle J is equal to angle D. Okay, so we know that these two are the same. And then it says angle J is a right angle. Oops, maybe I should have made that as a 90 degrees then, because they're the same and they are a right angle. So for hypotenuse leg, yes, we've got our right triangle, so that's good. I'm going to look to see, this side here, RM, is opposite the 90 degrees, so that means that that is our H. That's our hypotenuse. So now what we're missing is the leg, okay? So we could say that JM is congruent to DB, okay? Or, it doesn't matter which leg we say. We could also say that this side, RJ, is congruent to FD. It doesn't matter which leg. So it could have been either one of those two, okay? So that's using hypotenuse leg. All right, example 2. Is the congruence statement true or false? If true, explain the reasoning. So either side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse leg. If it's false, was there enough information given to prove the congruence? So I have actually identified all of these questions that I have in the prompt here. I identified them right down here for you. So you just have to answer these 3 questions, okay? So it says, here's the congruence statement. It says DAT is congruent to DET. So I'm going to take a look, and remember, I need to prove one of these 5 different methods in order for it to be congruent. So if I can find one of these 5 methods, then it's a true statement, okay? So let's take a look. We've got a side congruent to this side, okay? We've got another side here, so we've got a side, side. Now, no angles are marked. No angles are marked, but I do know that this side DT is in both of the triangles. That means DT is equal to itself, right? because it's the same exact side in both triangles. So then we have a side, side, side. So is it congruent? Yes, it is. That's a true statement. Was there enough information to tell? Well, yes. If I was able to answer one of these things, then most times it should be yes. There may be an exception, but we'll take a look. All right, so moving on to the next one. Okay, so I need to prove this statement is true or false. Okay, so I'm going to take a look here. This one is marked with numbers, so it's telling me that side CD is 7 and side AB is 7. That's a side. I'm going to mark that as a side. Okay. I see that side FD is the same as side AC there because they're both 5, so that's another side. All right, no angles are marked. So that tells me that it can't be any of these ones with the angles because no angles are marked. All right, so now let's determine between the side, side, side or the HL. Well, I do not see any 90-degree angles there for a right triangle, so it's not HL. So maybe it's side, side, side. Let's see. The other side of the triangle, I see that this part is equal to itself, but we have this little extra loop here. This is a 1 unit, but this side here is 2. Is 1 the same as 2? No, it is not. So this third side here does not work. So that means side, side, side does not work. Okay, so if I wanted to write the reasoning here, side, side, side doesn't work. So that tells me right there, that was enough actually information because I could tell that it was not true by side, side, side. So that means that this is a false statement. All right, again, feel free to rewind this video if you want to rewatch that to really understand it. Here's the next one. Okay, we've got triangle BAD is congruent to triangle BCD. All right, so is it congruent or not? Let's see. I don't see any angles marked again. So no angles are showing that they are marked. So that means that all of these ones with the angles I can cross out. Okay. This one, hypotenuse leg, has to have a 90-degree angle. That's not marked. So the only way that this will work is with side, side, side. All right, I see that these two sides are the same, so that's a side. I see that this side is the same side in both triangles, so that's a side. What I need is for this side to be the same as this side, but it doesn't say anything about those two sides, so that means that there is not enough information. Is there enough information? No, there is not. I cannot say that there is a reason. Maybe it's side, 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 but I'm not sure. That means that my congruent statement, as of right now, is false because I would need to know these two sides to find enough info. All right, letter D. So, are these two triangles congruent? Let's see here. I am noticing that this angle B and this angle D are the same because they both have 2 markings, so that's an angle. Okay. I am noticing that because this triangle here is this one. So I'm noticing that angle E is actually the same. Let me do this triangle, put that in purple. Okay, so those 2 angles are actually the same. Angle E is the same as that angle A. So we've got another angle. So we've got an angle. I don't know anything about the side in between, so we've got an angle and then an angle. Do I know the third side? Because here I see that there's an angle and an angle next to each other. Do we know this third side? So angle, angle, what about side AE? Is side AE equal to itself? Is AE congruent to AE? Well, yes, it is, because it's itself. So this one is angle, angle, side. This is a true statement. So then, is there enough information? Yes, there is. Okay, there's a lot of writing on here, so let me erase that again. So we've got an angle, and we've got this side. Okay, so angle, angle, side, right next to each other. Then on the other triangle, we've got this angle, then we've got this angle, and then we've got this same side. So angle, angle, side. All right, example 3, it's actually the exact same prompt, just 2 more questions. Okay, so we have 2 more to go through. All right, so are these 2 triangles, PQS congruent to PRS? Well, let's take a look here. I'm noticing that this is a right triangle. So I do see that this angle is 90 degrees. Yep, and so then that means that this is 90 degrees. Okay. I do see that the hypotenuse, that's the side across from that 90, is the same. So we've got a side length h here. This side is the same as this side. Okay. So we do have an h. Do we have that L? Well, the leg could be either one, so it could be this side and this side. But those 2 sides are not marked, right? We don't know anything about those 2 sides, so we can't say anything. What about the other side? This side is the same on both triangles because it shares a side. So this would be our leg. This would be a hypotenuse leg. There was enough information to tell that it was hypotenuse leg, so that means true. It is a congruent statement. This statement right here is true statement. All right, 1 more to go through. Okay. Let's see. I see that this side AC is the same as side CE, so that's an S. Okay, I also see that we have side DC is the same as side CB, so that's another S. So we have an S and an S. Let's see, if I wanted to prove side, 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 I'd have to say that this side here and this side were the same, but we don't know anything about them. They're not marked. So it's not side, side, side. There's no right triangle given. Right now I don't see any angles marked. But I have a question for you. What do I know about this angle and this angle? What do they look like? Do you remember? It kind of forms what looks like a V for vertical angles. Do you remember what we know about vertical angles? Vertical angles are equal. So that means that this angle and this angle are the same. So that's an A. So right now we have a side, an angle, and a side. Side, angle, side, yes, that is one of them. Side, angle, side. So yes, there's enough information, and true, this congruent statement is a true statement. All right, thank you.